Disclaimer, I am going to poke fun at this guy a little bit. Any rudeness or sarcastic humor that may come through this video is completely for entertainment's sake. I love all of my fans, it's just funnier to make fun of you guys sometimes. Yo, look at this, a fan request. If you want, I can link you the Nalu deck I made. I don't think it's that great, but I feel like it has some potential. Well, certainly, I love fan requests. Let's take a quick look at his deck. He said it has some potential, it can't be that bad. Whoa, what the what? And the 1-ofs and 2-ofs and the... I just don't know how this happens. And the 2 different events and the 4 different climaxes. What the heck kind of numbers do you have with something like this? And then how does that happen? And somehow you're running less level 0s than you are level 1s. How were you only able to find 12 level 0s? That's just like a little bit of everything with your numbers. It's like a little bit of brainstorm, a little bit of suicide. I did notice you had 2 3-ofs in the deck. I think those are level 0s. Let's take a quick look. Are you joking with me right now? You managed to somehow fit 8 different level 0s into your level 0 lineup, and you didn't end up with any suiciders or brainstormers? Like one didn't even fall in by accident? And, excuse me if I could just calm down for a second here. What are these? If my eyes aren't playing tricks on me, they look a little bit like level 0 vanillas. Now, my memory isn't the greatest. So, because I saw some 1-ofs on your list, I'm going to assume that these were 1-of Tekkens, because you just didn't know what else to fill the space with. So... you see, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go back and I'm going to look at your deck list because I want to make absolutely sure that I saw these at 1-of and not something bigger than that. Okay, alright, so what you're telling me is apparently are the level 0 vanillas not only so important that they absolutely need to be run at 3 each, not just 1 3-of, 3 each, but they are both the only cards in the entire deck that you need 3 copies of to win. The rest of the deck can be inconsistent and choppy, and I can just not run any more than 2 of any other card in the deck, including the climaxes, but so help me, I am going to have 3 of each of the cards that matter, the level 0 vanillas. I'm terribly sorry. After looking over the patient, it has severe fractures at every level, missing parts of its level 0, and the patient has absolutely no sense of direction. I'm afraid, after looking over the patient's severe damage, with a heavy heart, I have to declare this deck terminal. I am sorry for your loss. But that's okay. In order for something to be born, something else must break. So let's try this again from the beginning. Now, believe it or not, it's actually pretty difficult to make a Natsu and Lucy themed deck. First of all, ironically, red is the weakest color in the Fairy Tail set. Natsu's amazing in the show, but not so much in the card game. Green, on the other hand, is a very good set, but it's a very selfish color because it mainly only works with itself. Green cards help out key characters. Key characters get this. Key characters get plus 500 power and Super Encore. Search your deck for a key character. Back up one of your characters with key gets plus 2000 power. Fear not though, it's far from impossible. One thing that makes them work really well together is the fact that each of them strives well at 1 level. This particular level 2 Lucy gives all of our key characters plus 500 power and Super Encore. That makes it a very powerful level 2 ability, but obviously it doesn't work that well if we don't have good key characters. But we do have good level 2 key characters. Loki in particular is one of the most powerful cards in the entire Fairy Tail set. He's a 9500 level 2, which is above the shear line. He's a key character, so he gets abilities that affect off of key characters. He swings for 2 soul damage, and he sends 1 character from our hand to the memory. You might be thinking to yourself, oh well, why would I want a -1 just to get a kind of powerful character on the field? Well, that -1 doesn't have to be a bad thing. It sends the character to the memory. Keep in mind that Weiss Schwarz is a game about consistency. If you can send cards to the memory, then they're not going back to your deck. The more climaxes you have in your deck, and the less other cards you have in your deck, the more often you're going to climax cancel. So this is a pretty neat little card, huh? If we have this in play with that Lucy I was showing you earlier, then it's a 10,000 with Super Encore. That helps us get more deck consistency. When it comes to Lucy cores, this is the most common and the most powerful. Because we want to make a deck around Lucy and Natsu, we're going to have the Lucy part completely revolve around winning the game on level 2, as shown here. But this brings up the dilemma of what are we going to do about Natsu? Well, as luck would have it, Natsu is awful at level 2, but he is instead pretty decent at level 1. In a strange little bit of role reversal, it turns out that Lucy cards are really good at beating on level 2, and Natsu cards are really good at stalling on level 1. If you want to look at the deck as a story, you can almost think of it as Natsu is buying Lucy enough time to win them the game. Natsu clears the field and pushes at level 1 so that nothing can hurt Lucy or any of Lucy's summonings at level 2. Look at that! We can make a deck that's both powerful and poetic. And I think it's pretty safe to say that we have our core, so let's move on. The one really interesting thing that Fairy Tail does better than any other deck I've seen is remove stuff from the game. So our level 0 is going to be all about that. What we're going to try to do is get a bunch of level 0s together that we can remove from play. That way when we deck refresh the first time, we'll be starting the game way ahead of our opponent and climax canceling all the time. To start us off, we have 4 copies of Unison Raid Lucy because she is the best level 0 that removes herself from the game. You either kill her off by running her into something that's way too big for her to handle, or you dare your opponent to do the same at level 0. And you just keep building stock with her because your opponent doesn't want to kill her because then you get a free card. She removes herself from the game and gives us some consistency and also helps with some late game recollection. And she also lets you discard 1 card from your hand to search your deck for any magic character that you might need at the time and put it in your hands. The best way you can use this is to search for some Natsu cards that you're going to be using at level 1 to make sure that you have them in your hands. Our other 4 is going to be Rollball because he can remove himself from the game guaranteed. He doesn't need to run into something, he can just do it. You give up 1 stock as many times as you want to, mind you, and if you use this effect, he removes himself from the game at the end of the turn. Hypothetically, this also means that at any point in the game you can use him to boost one of your characters up, turn them into an assassin for the turn, and then he removes himself from the game afterwards. The deck isn't running any level 0 assist because we're running this kind of mechanic, so he's a really cool card to have in the back. You pump up one of your characters to run over one of your opponent's characters, and then he removes himself, which helps you anyway. He may look dumb, but Perfume Magic Ichia is actually also a really good card to put into the memory. If you do happen to pull off his first effect, then he's a 4,000 on the field if he's like the only level 0 that you are able to draw. If that didn't happen, then you can just kill him off, pay the 1 stock, and then put him into the memory. Not quite as good as the other 2, but still good enough to consider. The reason we'd run him over something like the Baby Jalal is because Baby Jalal doesn't actually do anything else other than his effect. So this guy, if you happen to pull off his effect, great. If not, put him in the memory. The other great thing about all the characters that I've mentioned so far is they attack and get 1 stock. So you can get the 1 stock and then immediately remove that 1 stock you gain to pull off their effect. Their effects can never truly be dead. 3 Suiciders just because we don't really have room for a 4th. 2 Brainstormers, not only because Brainstorm is necessary in competitive decks right now, but also because his is repeatable and also gives you hand advantage, which you can use all game out. We're relying a lot on character discard encore, so why not get more characters in our hands? Makes sense, I hope. The only level 1s we'll be running are the 2 Natsus that I showed you earlier. And I know you're all thinking right now, what? Only 7 level 1s? But how can this be? This deck is very, very risky and very, very bursty. We're mainly focusing on the consistency aspect, and there aren't very many other good level 1s that match other than these 2 Natsus. So rather than wreck our level 2 consistency, we're just going to gamble on these 2, which isn't that much of a gamble because you can also search for these 2 using the level 0 Lucy. You can also brainstorm with Makarov and get these as well. There's enough search to justify only having 7 level 1s. Not only is this Natsu godly, but it's also named after a heavy metal band, so you know it has to be a good card. It's a level 1 Suicider and it's free. How could you not run 4 of this card? This is the perfect card for making sure your opponent cannot keep up level 1 advantage. Its Climax combo is also amazing because it gets rid of characters with Encore. All in all, Natsu is the perfect card for getting rid of level 1s. No matter how powerful, no matter how annoying, no matter how good their Encore is, this Natsu has an answer for everything at level 1. Living by Instinct isn't quite as good, but it also has its uses. It has character discard Encore, which is already good. He can wall out at level 1 so that your opponent can't just step over him with something ridiculous like Birdcage Asuna or something. You can just let him take a hit, move him to an open space during your turn, and start attacking that one. Your opponent has to keep moving their characters. It's just good times. Also, every time one of your other characters becomes reversed, he gets plus 1000 power. So if you run 2 characters into bigger things, he could potentially be an 8000. Believe it or not, in testing, this proved to be a very useful ability. The deck doesn't run any assists until level 2, so what I would normally do is I would take some of the level 0s that needed to send themselves to memory, or some of the level 1 Natsus that could reverse other characters, run them both into something kind of big, and then use my 8000 Natsu to step over a 7000 vanilla. All in all, the level 1 Natsu lineup is very powerful. Level 2 is of course our kill level, so let's hope you got enough stock during level 1. This Lucy is the sole reason that key decks work. All of our main cards from level 2 and level 3 will be key cards, so make sure to run this at its maximum number 4. As soon as you get one of these in the back row, your Loki and your Virgo are going to be invincible for the rest of the game and also more powerful. If you happen to have 2 of these on the field, then you can also clock this so that it's on top of your clock, draw the extra 2 cards, and then all of them get another 1000 on top of the 1000 that they're already getting from the 2 on the field. The timing of this card can be very difficult to learn, but once you learn it, it's going to be very hard to stop you at level 2. And here he is, the monster, the man of the deck, Loki himself. He really needs no introduction. He swings for 2 soul damage, he's got 9500 base power, he only costs 2. He sends 1 card from your hand to the memory, which is normally a -1, but in this deck's case, it's a good thing. The card doesn't have a single downside, so why not praise it as a monster? Needless to say, this is the strongest card in the deck, and the deck that will be ensuring your victory most of the time. I guess in a way you could say he is your, key to victory. Anyone? Virgo's also really baller, and we need more options at level 2 if we can't get Loki's in our hand. She's level 2, she costs 2, she's a 9000 vanilla, your typical 9000 vanilla, but in this case, she is also a key character, so she works with our level 2 assist. So if you just can't get your hands on some Lokis, then put Virgo in the ring instead. She's only 500 power less. Level 0 is kind of our least valuable level, so you can mess around with it if you want to. I'd recommend trying to throw in some of the healing Natsu if you really don't like either of these 2 cards, but that is completely up to you. I run this Lucy at level 3 at 4 because with all of the cards that send themselves to memory in this deck, having something that benefits with recollection is really helpful. Getting 4 or more in the memory is really not a problem at all, and it gives her super encore if you can pull it off. She also gives the character opposite to her -1 soul, which actually wasn't all that relevant, but can help in certain situations, because it means every turn of the game your opponent is losing 1 damage. I also found that her climax combo is a lot better than a lot of people give it credit for. All of your characters getting a plus 3000 power boost almost always wipes the field completely. And if you can manage to get 2 of these in the front row when you pull this off, all of your characters get a 6000 boost. Overall, I just really like this card, which is why I run it at 4. I struggled a lot with this Natsu, and I couldn't figure out whether I wanted him or the one that heals, but I ultimately went with this one. I really wanted to run this at a higher number, and if you're testing with this deck, then you might want to consider maybe getting rid of a couple of the level 0s and throwing a couple more of these in, just because his effect can be very helpful. Chances are your opponent's always going to be front attacking at level 3 because he wants to be finishing the game off as quickly as possible, and you have the freedom to look at the top of your deck, see if it's a climax, and if it is, put it right back on top, let the attack go through, and let it get cancelled. And if it's not a climax, you can put it in the waiting room and get even better odds of getting a climax in your next one. This combos really well with all of the cards that send themselves to memory, because if you send all of the other cards to memory, that's like 15 cards you have in memory, and you have that much better odds of getting a climax. So those are my thoughts on it. Try to fit more in if you can, but at least try to get 1. I'm comfortable with 1, so that's what I'm running it at. For climaxes, I just run the 2 that are required for our climax combos. They're both really good climax combos, just run a full set of each. If you decide to use the healing Natsu, then you can get rid of some of the Force Gate closures for his climax combo, but that is completely up to you. Finally, I run this event. It's not the best event in Fairy Tail, but I use it, and let me explain why. There are some times when you have to go into level 2 with your level 1 characters because you haven't drawn into them yet, like maybe something's happened to your hand or something. And if you're level 2 and you only have the Natsu with Super Encore and your opponent keeps attacking into it, then you can just use this card to step over whatever they attacked with, and it's a really good surprise card. Not only that, but it sends itself to memory, which we've already said is good. Personally, if you find yourself not using this card very much, or if you find yourself not really liking this card, then there are two alternatives that I would suggest. Either the level 1 backups that are the key summonings, because they can give your characters 3,000 at level 1 if you do it correctly, and they also work off of recollection, or you can take these out, and if you really want another event, put in some of the S rank missions. Either one of those two is a fine substitute. I just found that this one did the most when I was testing, that's all. Here's a quick look at my deck list again because I forgot to put one at the beginning of the video. We weren't necessarily able to fix the deck that you created, but we were able to take that idea, take the spirit of it, and put that heart into a deck that's fully operational. All in all, I think the deck came out just fine. Did you enjoy this video? Then it would really help me out if you left me a like. Make that bar as blue as possible. Do you have your own thoughts on the deck, or have some suggestions for what deck I should do next? Then why not leave it in the comment section below. And finally, subscribe to stay up to date on the latest Kudou news. I really am sorry it took so long for this video to get made, but I do hope it met your expectations. Until next time, YouTube, I bid you adieu.